Good evening. It is 5:15 this Monday, August 8th, and the Carroll City Council is now in session. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, all are present. Item number 3 on tonight's agenda is the consent agenda, which I will read as follows, is the approval of the minutes of the July 25th, 2022 meeting, approval of bills and claims. We have 4 liquor license renewals. We have a renewal of a Class B beer permit with Class C native wine permit with Sunday sales at Full Swing Golf. We have a renewal of a Class C liquor license with Sunday sales with the American Legion Post number 7. We have a renewal of a Class C liquor license with Sunday sales at Hunan Chinese Restaurant. And then we also have a renewal of a Class C liquor license with outdoor service and Sunday sales at Jalisco Restaurant. We also have a community development block grant, owner-occupied housing, and the information on that is contained in the packet. Pardon me. Along with rehabilitation grant number 19 HSG 002, includes technical service agreement amendment number 1 and administrative service agreement amendment number 2. And we also have an appointment to a council or commission appointment by council is Sheila Detlinger, who is joining the Parks and Recreation and Cultural Advisory Board, a 3-year term to expire 05/31 of 25. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Faith. Yes. Schreck. Dirks.
Yes.
Bordnaro.
Yes.
Bauer.
Yes.
Seaman.
Yes.
It is approved.
Thank you. Item number 4 on tonight's agenda is oral requests and communications from the audience. This is members of the public can address the council on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Are there any? None in-house, none online. Okay. Moving forward, we will have ordinances. The first one is a rezoning request from A1 Ag District to R3 Low Density Residential District and R4 Medium Density Residential District, and I believe that's the Cothey property. Mike, do I turn that over to you?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So Lamar Cothey has requested a rezoning of approximately 100 acres of land. And if you would go to the next slide, please, Laura. This map shows and depicts in Area A and Area B of what he's proposing to be rezoned. Now, he actually owns a sliver of land that's in green that would be south of Collison Addition that extends out to Grant Road also, but that is not included in the rezoning. So when the council is considering a rezoning, they should take into account both our comprehensive plan and then public input that the city would receive on such a request. Now, the comprehensive plan serves as a long-range planning document for the city on how it's going to develop and grow. The property identified in here in our comprehensive plan for Area A is low-density residential, and Area B is high-density residential. And the proposed rezonings that they're requesting would be in conformance. Now, the rezoning that they're requesting in Area A would be to R3 low-density residential, and in Area B is proposed to be rezoned to R4 medium-density residential. Now, as required by the city zoning ordinances, letters were sent to property owners within 200 feet of the proposed rezoning, and notice additionally was published in the Carroll Times-Herald on July 5th and again on July 29th, notifying the public of the request for rezoning. We've not received at the City Hall any written correspondence concerning the rezoning request. Now, I would note that the Planning and Zoning Commission did receive and reviewed the rezoning request at the July 13th meeting. Paul Furkey was present and asked questions regarding the rezoning. Specifically, he was asking how would access to this property be obtained? Would it come off of Grant Road or Noble? Staff did indicate that It could come off of either Grant Road or Noble or Griffith Road in the city. However, due to a waterway and floodplain between the main developable area and Grant Road, the most likely location for access would be off of Noble or Griffith Road. Mr. Furkey did note that he'd prefer access from Grant Road and not Griffith. But staff, again, because of the waterway issue, did note that would be an area of concern. Now, how a property is accessed would come up during the subdivision process. It doesn't really come up, it's not really germane to the rezoning request, but he did otherwise note that. Otherwise, there was no other public comments or objection received. Now, the commission did discuss during the rezoning if it was appropriate for the proposed rezoning or if a lower class rezoning should be considered other than the R3 and R4 rezoning. Staff did explain that the rezoning did meet our comprehensive plan and would be compliant with our adopted plan. And then additionally, a lower classification likely would not be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Now, staff also did note during the discussion that there is a number of areas in the community that are R3 and R4, including areas south, like the Oak Park Heights area. Northridge would have areas of R3, Rolling Hills. So really what the lot size doesn't necessarily mean you'll get high-density apartments per se. It really just is the lot size is what the zoning guides it for. In fact, in the R4 district, the maximum you can have is a fourplex in that zoning classification. So with that, the Planning Commission did unanimously vote to recommend that the City Council approve the proposed rezoning, and that staff is recommending the City Council consider and approve a request to rezone the property from A1 Agricultural District to R3 Low Density Residential and R4 Medium Density Residential. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council would have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. There you've heard the summary of it. I have 523, is what that says, 523. And with that, I'd seek a motion to go, to open a public hearing, or just to open the public hearing. Absolutely, yep. So let's, any questions, for Mike at this time? Any clarification in there? The only one that I had specifically, Mike, and this was, the access to the properties from, I know it's, it's available from two different areas. Is there any concern with, the city or the developer or whoever lays in, a roadway with the Grant Road access, with that being in that floodplain that gets plenty wet?
Yeah.
When it rains?
Yeah.
Only when it rains. But is there any concern with putting a road in there?
Well, certainly that would be road layout and design would be something that would be reviewed during the subdivision process. So it's not really a rezoning item, but certainly I think staff would have concern laying a roadway and just the cost of what you'd have to incur, because obviously that waterway needs to be maintained. So I would speculate that it'd be very unlikely that a developer would want to extend a roadway to Grant Road. With that said, we've actually, Mr. Cothe has actually suggested that he would be willing to deed most of that land to the city of Carroll for parkland purposes, because he does not believe it would be developable with that waterway. So he has not done that at this point, but he's had those discussions with the city.
So then, are these the two areas just being rezoned and not this?
Correct.
For the purpose of this discussion?
Correct.
Okay,
So that
perfect.
piece
That's fine.
that's adjacent to Grant Road, that would remain A1 agricultural
Okay.
after this rezoning.
Okay. How about the council? Any questions for Mike on this? And we haven't received anything, any comments from the
We have not
city?
received
Okay.
any written or calls on this request.
Okay.
Mike, just to confirm, you said the largest that could go into these A and B areas is a fourplex?
In the area B would be a fourplex.
And
correct?
area A is just,
I believe it's duplexes off the top of my head.
Okay.
We did not include that in the packet this time.
also just clarify for me what you would consider, you mentioned the word low, or that, planning and zoning had asked if we had looked into low?
I think what they were asking is, should we look at like R1 or R2 versus the proposed R3 and R4?
Okay.
And I think if you look at the zoning map in town, we actually have very little area that's R1, for example, because those are larger lot.
Okay, that's what I wanted, I just
subdivision.
wanted to clarify, because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know what R1, R2, R3, and 4 are, so. Okay.
Are there any other questions from the council? Hearing none, I show 5:26 and we'll close the public hearing. And then you would recommend that the council approve an ordinance, at least the first reading of the ordinance.
Correct.
And I'll try and read that just for the record. To request the rezone of the northwest quarter and southeast quarter and the west half of the south 20 acres of the south 1/2 northeast 1/4 of section 18, township 84 north, range 34 west, 5th PM, prime meridian, Carroll County, Iowa, and A1 agricultural district to R3, low density residential district, and northeast quarter and southeast quarter and the east half of the south 20 acres of the south half of northeast 4th of section 18, township 84 north, range 34 west, 5th prime meridian, Carroll County, from A1 ag district to R4 medium density residential district. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
And then do we want to include a date for the second reading in that motion?
No.
Or no?
We'll just automatically bring it back the next council meeting.
Perfect, okay. Okay, so you have the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. Base?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bornero?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you all. Okay, item 5B, Carroll City Ordinance Chapter 65-02, 19 Amendment, stop sign at Court Street and Second. Chief Burke?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for a stop sign at Court and Second Street, like was said by the mayor. The review of this intersection shows that we've had 2 property damage collisions in the last 6 months. The last one also had property damage that was sustained to adjacent properties at that location. And review with the city engineer indicated that the city signing plan recommended a stop sign at this location also. So what I brought to you is the ordinance that would add a stop sign to Court Street at Second Street. This will be our first reading. It's the first time we've seen it. So kind of discussion to see what you want to do as far as readings, and my recommendation would be for approval of this stop sign at this location.
Perfect, there you have it. Any questions for Brad? I'm kind of familiar with that neighborhood, and I've kind of noticed it too, that, you know, there's some as you go south, but there isn't anything, and I'm familiar with a couple of the accidents there as well too, and not
pretty-
heavily trafficked.
Especially when school's in, so we're about to get started there, so it'll help slow some issues down.
Yeah. Would you like to see it get in, you know, before school starts?
You know, it's
If
really up
that's
to you guys
possible?
as far as how you want to take the ordinance. I did not send anything out to adjacent property owners to get any feedback from them, but if you're familiar with the area, there are stop signs pretty much everywhere else at the
Yeah.
intersections. This is kind of the one that just does not have one.
Yeah. Any other questions for Brad? What's the council's wishes? Do you want to pass the first reading of the ordinance and then have a second or third? What are your wishes?
I would just let it go through.
Yeah.
Put it in place.
It'll
I
probably
agree,
take
yeah.
Randy's guy at least probably a week at least before they get signs put in. They have to do one call and stuff, so.
I'm not
we
in
can get
favor
signs.
of all 3 going at one time. Bad practice. 1 this time and then 2 and 3 the next.
I think by at least letting the property owners know about it at a minimum, but with just my opinion, I'm not voting on it, but I'm all in favor of putting it in there. I want to
Yeah,
make
no
that clear.
preference, no preference, 1 or 3.
Yeah, I'll
however
go
you
on
guys
record
wish to
saying,
proceed.
you know, I think it needs to be there, but I do think we should properly notify the property owners, I think. But it's your call. Is there a motion to any effect?
motion to approve this ordinance then, to start that off.
Or do you wanna waive 1, 2, or all 3 readings? That's your,
1 and 2.
you wanna do 1 and 2?
I'll be
We
in
can
no
come
hurry.
back and revisit it.
I'll do reading 1, but I won't do reading 1 and 2. But I want the stop sign, but that's just bad practice to pass all 3 at one time. You should only do 1, and then if you wanna do 2 and 3, go ahead, but
Are you okay with
Sure.
the first reading? Okay.
Sure.
So motion by Board Narrow to waive the first, or to approve the first reading. Can I have that motion?
You have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to that effect. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Bauer,
yes.
Base,
Yes.
Seaman,
yes,
Dirks,
Yes.
Shrek. Yes. Board Narrow.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Perfect, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Brad. Okay, under item 6, we have, under resolutions, we have a Seventh Amendment amended and restated urban renewal plan for the Hoyt building, for the Wendells and Athertons. And Mike, I turn that back over to you, please.
Would you wanna open?
Oh, yeah, you want, nothing to summarize then? Okay, so,
He'll summarize it.
Yeah,
but go ahead and
okay,
open the public
okay, we'll open a public hearing at 5:32. Laura?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mark and council. So on April 25th, the council provided direction to staff on how to create a development agreement that is related to the rehabilitation of property at 220 West 7th Street. This property is locally known as the Villa or Hoyt Mansion and dates back to 1919 according to county records. Now, this development agreement calls for the renovation of interior and exterior parts of the building and with it to be completed by December 31st of 2024. Construction costs are expected to be approximately $1 million, and in exchange, the owners will receive from the city a TIF rebate over a 15-year period for 100% of the increased property value attributable to the renovation work they're completing on the property. Now, the total rebate will be capped at $250,000. Now, the current assessed value of the property is $209,210, and to receive the full $250,000 based on the current TIF consolidated rate on 90% commercial property tax rollback, the building value would need to increase to approximately $1,010,000 to receive a rebate over a 15-year period. So we would guess in discussion with the assessor that would be unlikely. So one other note I would note is similar to other development agreements the city has in the past, this agreement includes a provision related to an annual appropriation by the council for the TIF increment. Now, this is common language in development agreements. It's really done to prevent this from being counted towards our constitutional debt limit. And without this language, we'd be required to count this towards our constitutional debt limit. Now, while this language does allow current and future councils to choose not to appropriate the funds for this grant in the future, it does come with some pretty severe penalties for the city if that would occur. Most likely what would happen is the city's bond rating would likely be changed to a junk status, and in the end, the city's ability to borrow funds in the future would be hammered with higher rates that could cost the city more in the end than the grant payments themselves. So the recommendation this evening is for the council to hold a public hearing and consider a motion to approve a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of development agreement between the city of Carroll and Brian Wendell, Holly Wendell, Jason Antherson, and Karen Antherson. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has this evening. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mike? We've certainly been doing this step by step and methodically as we go. Are there any questions the council has tonight about this next step? If not, then we are in order for a motion to approve the resolution.
Can
Or I
just
gotta
close
close
the
it,
public
sorry.
hearing, please? Yep.
I know, I'm gonna get used to it by my last meeting. It is 5:35, we'll close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Sorry. Now, is there a motion to that effect?
so moved,
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution authorizing execution of the development agreement between the City of Carroll and Brian and Holly Wendell, and Jason and Karen Atherton. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Seaman?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Base?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Bordenero?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you. Item 6B under resolutions, we have a Carroll Recreation Center improvement project, 2021, not to exceed $700,000 in GO capital loan notes. This came from the meeting 2 weeks ago. And again, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. It is 5:36. And Laura, would you like to summarize?
Yes, thank you, Mark and council. So this is the next step in the process to issue this debt of the not to exceed $700,000 general obligation capital loan notes for the rec center building project that's coming up, getting started here next month. So at the last meeting, we did set the public hearing date for this council meeting, and the notice was published as a requirement in the Carroll Times-Herald on Tuesday, July 26th. So the next step is to hold this public hearing, take any comments, and then approve this resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action. We did not receive any comments, written or oral, in the office prior to the council meeting. And we are anticipating to issue this debt next calendar year in 2023 with another issuance for streets. So that's kind of the timeline, but we just wanted to get the public hearing portion taken care of at this point for the project. Are there any other questions about this project, or not the project itself, about the issuance of the debt? We'll continue to work with our bonding attorney, Allers and Cooney, and PFM for this process.
Perfect. And you said earlier, no comments.
No comments have been received.
Any other questions for Laura in this step? Okay, we'll make it quick. It is 5:38, and we will close the public hearing on said subject. And per recommendation, we would seek a motion to approve the resolution. Is there one to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance not to exceed $700,000 in GO loan notes for the Carroll Rec Center Building Improvement Project. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Bordenero?
Yes.
Shrek?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Dirks?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
Perfect. Thank you again. Okay, unless I missed something, we are at item number 7 under reports. And the first one is discussion on Court Street LLC tax abatement request. I'll turn it over to Mike. I see it.
Thank you, Mark and council. So Adam Schweers and some of his partners are in the process of redeveloping the former clinic building located at 502 North Court Street. Now, part of this project will be to renovate both the interior and exterior of the building and to turn it back to its original historic look. But additionally, they will be redeveloping it to include 12 new apartment buildings. Now, as part of this, the developer is requesting that the city amend its urban revitalization district in order to offer a higher tax abatement for the project than it was currently available. Specifically, the developer is requesting the city provide a 10-year, 100% abatement on the increased value of the renovated building. Now, tax abatement provides a temporary reduction of property taxes over a specific period of time. Now, in this case, the city's current urban revitalization plan provides for a tax abatement on residential properties with 3 or more units of up to 100% of value for 5 years. That was a typo in the staff report of 10 years. Now, there is, under state law, under urban revitalization, you can do up to 100% for 10 years. Our current urban revitalization plan does allow follows the single family and duplex standard of 100% on the first $75,000 of increased value for 5 years. When this was developed, the council made the decision to match the multifamily residential. They wanted to match what was in single family and duplex in state law. So we can increase it above what we currently have in our current urban revitalization plan. Now, one of the other decision points is if the council decides to increase what we allow for multifamily residential. The other decision point is what area do we want to include in this? Under state code, we must include at least 2 parcels. So it could be this and an adjacent parcel, or it could be an area. For example, you could choose to include the entire downtown area, which would be generally 7th Street to Railroad, Clark to West Street would be one area you could include. So we need direction on what area in the downtown area that you would want to include. Now, I did receive a question from a council member asking what are we talking? I mean, what dollars are we talking in an abatement like this? So the property's current taxable value, assessed value is $238,630. Now, there are too many variables at this point to actually project what the assessed value ultimately will be. But looking at other developments in the area, it can be reasonably projected that the final value would be somewhere between $484,540 and $607,640. And kind of based on these estimates under the current abatement program, the total abatement would be somewhere between $18,575 and $23,475. Now, it should be noted under our current abatement, we abate the first $75,000 of new value on each unit. With 12 units, that'd be $900,000. So he'll receive the full abatement value, or the full increased value would be abated for 5 years under the current standard. If we would increase it to the 10 years, even though it's at 100%, well, he's already receiving that value. That abatement would go to $37,150 to $46,950. So it'd be double over what is in the current standard. With that, I guess the question before council is to discuss the request to revise the urban revitalization and provide staff direction on how to proceed to make that amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions council has this evening.
Adam, do you wish to approach the council?
I sure can. I think I provided that memo. It should be in your packet. It kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to what we're planning on doing with the building. The 10-year is something that we took advantage of in Jefferson on our project there. That's what we received there. As I noted in the memo, we're planning to apply for workforce housing tax credits through Iowa Economic Development, and I've also engaged an architect from Des Moines ID8 Architects, Russ Bitterman, as well as a historian as a separate consultant. That historian will help us work through SHPO, and that's what we will try to also apply for in terms of renovating the exterior of the building to that 1929 look. And so we've got historical construction people that specialize in the outside masonry and the tuck pointing and the design of the windows and the stucco tiles that you see along the top. Those are things that we're probably not going to be able to source locally, but everything else on the inside of the building we will be able to source locally and work with local contractors on. So there's a lot of moving parts to this thing, but when we go and we apply for state and federal historical tax credits, and when we go to apply for Iowa workforce housing tax credits, they oftentimes, well, all of the time, are asking if there's any type of a local contribution and what kind of support. So in our project that we did in Jefferson, we received the tax abatement. We also received some additional funding or assistance in purchasing the property from the local economic development group in Grove Green County. We also received a facade improvement grant from the city of Jefferson. So those three things were our local match. But then their community development person at the time also went out to businesses in the community, and those businesses wrote letters of support for our applications, stating how important housing was to the community and what it meant for their business to improve housing in Jefferson. And we'll be working with CADC and probably kind of putting the word out there that if there's people that are willing to write us a letter of support, they like to see those things also come in with the application. It just scores a lot better. So right now, the only thing that we could really request of the city, because of the way the property is zoned, was tax abatement. There really isn't any other avenue for us to proceed because of the way urban revitalization was done.
Urban
The
renewal.
renewal was
Yeah.
designed. If this property was literally across the street, we would be able to ask for other local assistance, but because it's where it's at, and just because of the way that plan was drawn up, it doesn't qualify for anything right now other than tax abatement, so that's really the only thing that we're able to do from a local perspective. Based upon what I know about we just got done completing our property in Jefferson. So based upon what I know about supply chain costs on 12 units and where interest rates are right now, this property project will be probably somewhere around 1.2 to 1.4 million when we're completed with it. So it will be a vast improvement. And if for anybody who knows the property currently, nobody can live there. Nobody can live there, other than the family of 5 raccoons that were evicted some time ago. But otherwise, that property should not have been inhibited over the last several years. And so we currently are in the process of hauling the rest of the stuff, garbage, out. We cannot make any improvements, do any demolition, or do anything to the property until we receive approval of our A, tax abatement, B, our applications. So the only thing we've been able to do so far is just haul garbage out of there. By the end of next week, that'll be 20 tons. 20 tons.
When are the applications due for the grants, and when will you hear back on those?
So SHPO, there's a 3-phase process to that. We can apply for that at any time throughout the year. Iowa Workforce Housing Tax Credits, generally those applications have to be in June, and then they announce acceptance around August. So we're literally looking at finishing hauling all of the stuff out, then working through phase 1, 2, and 3 with the historian, and applying for the historical tax credits app, and hopefully getting approval for that, and then we'll turn around and apply for workforce housing next year in June. We won't be able to start construction until August, so we don't anticipate this being done until probably the end of I'm gonna target spring, summer of 2024.
What kind of money does the workforce housing tax credits give you, and then the historical grant?
So the historical grant, there's a lot of different moving parts to that, but what we are able to apply for depends upon how much we're able to do historically. And some of what we do to the inside improvements, even though they may not be historical, can be taken into account. We can receive a tax credit of approximately 25% from the federal side, and a 20% tax credit from the state side. And then it's up to us, once we're awarded those tax credits, to work with a tax credit broker who then sells our tax credits to people who need those tax credits. And we generally get around 91 cents on the dollar. And so I can't really give you a number. All I can give you is really percentages, because A, I don't know how much the project's gonna be yet, and I don't know how much the tax credit awards are gonna be, and then I don't know for sure whether I'm gonna get 89 cents or 91 cents or what I'm gonna get.
Yep.
So, and then Iowa Workforce Housing Tax Credit has a whole different formula, but similar to that explanation. But I think those are about 20% of the total project cost, with some ceilings based upon number of units. So in Jefferson, our sales tax credit and our workforce housing tax credits amounted to approximately $130,000 on about a 1.2, actually it ended up being a $1.4 million project. So.
And you had that right, it's 20%. You also get the benefit of the sales tax.
Right.
Refunded.
So we have to track a lot of different things in spreadsheets. We have to track everything that we're paying, sales tax wise, and submit that. We have to track everything we're doing to the exterior, everything we're doing to the interior, anything that we're doing from a plumbing and electrical side. And all these things have to be tracked separately and then submitted as part of one bundled application at the end.
With the workforce and historical, do you have to hold on to it for so long as well?
No.
No,
We,
okay.
we will be able to go out to market on those, within the minute that I can get the certificate from the state and the Fed, then I can turn around and look to try to sell those.
Okay, but holding the property for a period of time.
Oh, yeah, and this is part of our portfolio, so we'll hold this property
Yep.
for a long time, because frankly, these are 15 and 20-year investments. I mean, we won't get paid back on them for a long time based upon the amount of money we're putting
Correct.
into them, so, yeah.
Adam, when you mentioned kind of the chronology of the process you have to go through, and you mentioned the only way the city could really step up and aid with this is through the abatement, does that also, if you get this type of support from the city, does this also help you access the help through the other applications?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, by having a local, some type of local participation from the city,
Okay.
it lets the state and everybody who's looking at these applications know that this is important to the community and thus that.
Yeah,
scores
I
them
thought I
better.
remember I've looked at through SHPO the process for this type of historical thing, and I wasn't sure if I remembered right. Thank you.
I guess just more curiosity than anything, what is Greene County, what are they doing for Jefferson economic development that they're helping clean a property like that up?
So they went through a process and identified a number of buildings in their downtown district. The building we did was about 1.5 blocks off of the town square, so they kind of identified about a 3, maybe 4 or 5 block area of properties that they wanted to see improved. Whether it was upper story, whether it was commercial, what have you. And then they passed what they could call a facade improvement grant. And whatever you do to the exterior of a building, doors, windows, tuck pointing, painting, awnings, whatever you do to that building, up to $150,000, 50% of that is reimbursed. So we received $75,000 in cash for all the improvements we did to the exterior of that building, which was significant. And so that was nice because that cash is actually able to come to you fairly quickly, even during the project before it's completed. So you can try to pay down some of the construction note as you're continuing to advance on that note. So that was one area. And then Greene County, of course, has the casino money that rolls into it. And so then that money, they really just have a board that decides how they want to spend it. And it can go, frankly, about to anything they want to do within the community. And in this particular case, their economic development group stepped up and said, well, we know who owns the property. And at the time it was Mr. White had passed away. He left it to his son who lived in Seattle. His son had put a new roof on it 6 years ago and the city had made him totally remove all of the sheetrock and anything that was on the inside of the building because it all had been damaged and had turned to mold and it was becoming a kind of a slum and blight, if you will. So they had made him do that. Well, he had some hard cost into it. So he wanted like $100,000 and some for the building, and we weren't willing to pay that because it wasn't going to work on the business plan. So Greene County came forward with $75,000 to help buy that down, so we were able to purchase the property for $40,000. And that was really what they did. And then abatement was already just a normal process. I just had to fill out the application through the city and the county.
Have you worked with Debbie Durham?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, quite a bit.
And that would
So
be where the
that's where
workforce.
that's where that workforce housing tax credits aspect of things comes through is IDEA.
And as Adam alluded to a little bit, we do have a facade improvement program written into our urban renewal district. So that would be a tool that we could use. Unfortunately, you need to be in a slum and blight district, and Adam's property happens to be what's called an economic development district within our urban renewal district. So that precludes the property from being considered for that. Now, one of the issues is Under state code, the logical question is, well, just change the designation, change it from economic development to slum and blight, because clearly the property is slum and blight. State code actually prohibits you, once you designate a property, either economic development or slum and blight, you're stuck with that forever under state code. So unfortunately, we were not able to change that designation.
I will say the plus side for us on this property versus the last project we did, we do actually have all of our utilities and electric and meters here to this property. That building was just literally a shell, so I had to trench in a whole new transformer, and we had to buy all of the gear to attach to the outside of the building. So we had a lot of infrastructure costs that went into that one that we won't have here. Fortunately, with me wanting to restore it to its 1929 glory, I'm probably gonna spend that in spades on making sure that it looks the way it's supposed to. So that's kind of my tit for tat. My architect has also been in contact with Randy about water service and making sure that we've got adequate water service for the building moving forward. We're likely going to have to sprinkle this property, which if there's a 4-inch line, maybe or less going into the building, we know we have access to a 6-inch line, so we at least know that the infrastructure is coming off of either Court or Fifth to get us what we need for water service in order to do what we need to do there.
Adam, I just a couple of real quick questions. You had mentioned earlier that it will score better with the state and those opportunities if you've got some local buy-in. Can you add more definition to that, what that must look like, or what that's defined, at what level of participation? Say, for an example, the current program, we're already participating. Are you saying that that won't score with them, or it will score, or a 10-year abatement would just score better? Can you explain that better?
A 10-year abatement will score better because it'll look better from a business plan perspective. They'll look on it as being a favorable project that they know is going to actually be able to go forward.
Okay.
And because of the way in which the application processes are, and the fact that I'm now having to wait for a whole year, and then we're not gonna complete the project for a whole another year, doing the 10-year allows us more time to get the project complete and be able to try to get the building full in order for the business plan to move forward without, running into year 4, we've barely even gotten the thing filled, and now all of a sudden we're paying, full value.
Okay.
On it.
So to
but
rephrase
yeah,
it,
it
today's
certainly will.
program would still be included
Yeah.
as
Some local
local
contribution.
contribution,
Yes.
and then, should the council decide maybe a 5-year, 100% or whatever, that would still, it's just how many more points can you score is essentially what you're saying.
That's exactly
Okay.
right.
Noted.
I don't have any other community development block grant or facade improvement grant
To compare
or
to,
anything else
right.
to add into here for local contribution. This is
Right.
literally the only thing
Yeah.
I've got.
The only local would be this.
Correct.
Okay. So, your letter also talks about, at a later date, maybe a later mayor and council, who knows, but you're asking to consider on-street parking concessions. Can you describe that and what's
Yeah,
needed there, just
so-
so the council has an idea?
Yeah, so basically, right now, we've got a parcel that we own as purchase of this property. Half of the Curbs parking lot is owned by us, and half of the Curbs parking lot is owned by Curbs.
Okay,
And so we've got some parking, but for 12 units, we really don't have enough. And with our Court Street Plaza apartments, which is just down the alley, we're also quite limited in terms of parking. We've only got one parking lot on the back side of that building that holds about 12 cars, and it's a 49-unit building. So we really struggle with parking as it sits now.
okay,
And so, one of the things that I just kind of briefly mentioned to Mike and Chief Burke is that if there's a possibility that we are able to park at least adjacent to the property, I'd be willing to pay for the snow removal if I need to, in order to have that ability for those folks to do that. But then Mike came back and said, well, maybe we can figure something out where during snow times, they need to park on this side of the street one night and this side of the street the next night. And as long as their vehicles are moving so snow removal can take place, that might not be necessary. Just as long as we can kind of come up with some type of a solution, because parking's a premium. When we took over Court Street, there was almost a 20% vacancy. And primarily the people that were living in that building at the time didn't drive. So there wasn't very many cars and it wasn't a big issue for a lot of years. But as we've made all the improvements to it over the last 7 years, and we've gotten young professionals and traveling professionals and just even just general people who are downsizing and looking for something different. Maybe they go snowbird in the winter. There's cars. There's more cars than there was when we first took the property over, and we've pushed that vacancy rate down to almost zero. So that all kind of compounds that parking issue, and right now we just don't have a whole lot there. So
I get it.
we're hoping we can try to partner up and work with whatever it is. And like I said, if we have to do the snow removal to allow those people to park there, city comes behind their cars, we then get them to move their cars, we push all of the windrows in between the cars and on our dime, I'd be fine with that. Whatever I can do to try to still allow that, because we don't have a parking garage, I can't send them anywhere else. And, you know, the county's got their parking lot that's full, and then they make their piles, and it's hard for them to allow anybody else to park there, and I get that too. So we're angling at anything we can make work in the future.
Yeah, I get it, and it's probably not important for tonight's discussion, but I just saw that in there, and I just want the
And
council
I wanted to make sure I kind of just gave everybody the heads up.
at least float that a
That's
little
kind of
bit.
where we're going with this, is we're gonna add another 12, you know, folks that are gonna have vehicles, so,
Right.
yeah.
You're saying 12 people, is this just a single one-bedroom?
Could be more,
Could be-
because, we're planning 1 3-bedroom.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I've got a nice spot for relocating families, and or maybe somebody decides to build a home and they put their house on the market and sells in 24 hours, and now they're designated homeless. But then we're gonna have 5 1-bedrooms, and the rest will be 2-bedrooms. So logically, we could have, you know, a couple cars per unit.
12,
on
24, 36.
6, yeah, I mean, we could have some cars added to it. What I've seen a big trend in though is even when we have single individuals, a lot of those folks are interested in 2-bedroom units. So there's still only 1 car there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are seeing that. These will be totally renovated, brand new, as we did in Jefferson, very modern, LVT hard floors, lighter colors, gray tones, dark cabinets, dark appliances, all LED lighting, high efficiency, everything, so.
Oh, you'll do them right.
Oh, yeah.
There's no question about that. Any other questions for Adam? Okay. Yeah, thanks, Adam. Recommendation, I mean, for tonight was just discussion or request to revise the urban revitalization district, and a potential revision to the current abatement schedule is at hand.
Yep, and I think the two questions again is, A, do you want to allow a larger abatement for the multi-residential? And B, if so, what area do you want to include in that? Do you just want this and an adjacent parcel, because you have to include 2 parcels? Or do you want to include a larger district, or do you want to do it citywide? Those would be your options.
Can we have to decide tonight?
Well, for us to draft the plan, that would be the next step, would be to draft a plan and bring it back to council. We need direction on how to draft that plan.
I think this property in particular, for sure, the 10-year 100%, just for the amount of money that they're gonna be putting into it, but also what they're gonna do for our downtown compared to what it currently is. Would this work on new construction as well, or would this just be remodels?
Whatever you include in the district would be eligible for it. So, you know, if you did it citywide, then new construction anywhere in town would be, you know, certainly you could look at, like I indicated earlier, you could include just a downtown zone. That would open up a lot of areas where, for example, Adams Street, some of those upper level units, maybe it is enough to spark them to be redeveloped. With the Corridor 2.0 work, there was a few sites that were identified to redevelop them. They would be within the district too. and that would be new construction, that would be multifamily. So I think there's a lot of different flexibilities if you looked at expanding it beyond just one or two parcels. Well, it has to be at least two parcels, but more than just that two parcels.
I'd like to ask Vicki to come up and share some research. For our 150th birthday of the city, she composed a book, which is pretty thick. She did a very brief history of every building downtown, and I asked her thoughts on this when I saw this proposal. I was very excited about it. I agree with what Kyle has said, and Vicki put together some information and even a suggestion to consider to help us with our decision-making, to give a little, provide some context. So I'll let Vicki, it's very brief, and I'll let her continue with her information and a possibility for another area for a parcel. Yeah, there's one for each person, I believe she brought, yeah.
The first picture is just to applaud Adam for what he's going to do with the Anmar building, because this is what it would have looked like when it was first built in 1929. And it's got a lot of historic value to it. The historic preservation is great. It's going to fix up an eyesore, like some have mentioned already in here. It's going to provide more living space in Carroll, which is what we need. And it's also going to honor the legacy of Drs. Martin and Annenberg, who created this in the first place. That's just a yay. Way to go. The second one is a little bit of history about Carroll. This is the 1875 plat of downtown Carroll. Carroll was originally platted in 1867, and it was basically, by 1875, was a town of a few blocks with a lot of two-story wood buildings in it. People lived in the upstairs, so downtown living was something that was important right from the very beginning. The businesses were on the first floor, residences were on the second floor. In September of 1879, a massive fire wiped out the downtown area from the east side of Adams Street to the west side of Main Street, and from 6th Street down to the railroad tracks. So when they rebuilt from 1880 into the early 1900s, a lot of those were brick buildings, because the city council determined that you couldn't build just wood buildings anymore downtown. And so the brick buildings, again, had businesses on the first floor, and the upper floor, a lot of times, again, was residences for people to live in, but there were also a lot of offices for doctors and lawyers and hairdressers, real estate, all sorts of people on the second floor. We rebuilt in that time period, and then we lost a lot of those second-story areas because of urban renewal in the 1970s. So most of 5th Street was wiped out by urban renewal, and it's single-story structures there. Now, on the third sheet, a couple of caveats on this. First of all, not all of these are for sale, obviously. And one that I was really excited about that I thought could possibly work was the Western Iowa Networks building, the second one on there. And then Adam informed me that because it's of its location and because it's never been a residential apartment building before, it couldn't be turned into apartments. So that one's a no-go. Secondly, the pictures and the status that I put on here were from several years ago when I toured these places. So some of them may have changed, whether for the better or for the worse in there. And most of these would have some access for handicapped issues and also parking issues because of their locations. But all of these have some potential to rehab. And the little map in the upper left-hand corner is basically what Mike had said earlier. It might be a block off or so on that, but that would be the area that you could consider as the downtown historic area, the revitalization district again. The first building on here is the Buckle and Masonic Temple building, and that one was built in 1914. The original building was built in 1907, burned down in 1913. They rebuilt it. Right now, the Buckle occupies the first floor, but the second and third floors have been empty since the 1980s. And there's a lot of room in there and some really beautiful woodwork. It's kind of like going into the Titanic in there because of the woodwork and the light fixtures and stuff that's up there. But there's also a lot of dead bats and dead pigeons up there. It would be a really fantastic place because it has huge wide hallways. On the second floor there, it's broken up into a lot of smaller offices from the 1970s with wood paneling. But on the third floor, you've got the picture on the second one over is the former Masonic Lodge meeting room. And then the one with the blue walls is to the north, and that is the former dining room. And there's a kitchen in there as well. And then the one on the right is the one that faces Adams Street, and it goes the full width of the building. And all of this would make fantastic living area. Now, there is an elevator shaft there. The elevator doesn't work anymore, but that is a possibility to revitalize that as well. I'm gonna skip over the old post office because I guess that won't work. The Knights of Columbus building where the Lincoln Highway Trading Company is on the lower level. The upstairs has a huge auditorium in it, and there are offices, there's a kitchen. Right now, the Catholic radio station is up there, but other than that, I don't think there's anything in that.
And it moved.
It
It's
moved.
at Kemper now.
Oh, okay. I couldn't find it on, that's why when I looked it up, I couldn't find it, okay. Then Brown Shoe Fit, actually has a second floor that's just basically used as storage area. That's the picture number 4 in blue. And at that time when I saw it, there was just stuff up there. There's really nothing, it's just a wide open space that at one time was Spurgeon's, where they had their women's clothing and also their beauty shop up there. And then underneath that building, in the basement, again, it's a huge storage area. And at one time, they were going to turn it into offices, and they got as far as putting in the walls and the drywall and the ceiling tiles, but that's as far as they got, at least a few years ago. And so I don't know what the condition is right now, but again, there's a possibility of construction if you wanted to have a basement place to live. The Seltzer or Penny's building, where the shops at 509 North Adams, like Merle Norman are, that originally was a 3-story building. And as part of urban renewal, they took off the 2nd and 3rd stories, which could be restored. The foundation of that building is really thick, and it would support, again, a 2nd and 3rd story on that. Right now, the basement is just a storage area. That's picture number 5. Used to be the Cernet's Toyland down there. The Kemke building is just down the street here. It's where Hair Biz is and where We the Dreamers is or was. And that has apartments up there now, but those could be renovated as well. And then Anderson Shoes, if you look at the picture 7, those 4 windows that are boarded up, those are into small offices that are there. But then behind that is a huge room that has about 12-foot ceilings in it, and then the workroom behind that. So there's a lot of living space, and that had been residential briefly at one time. And then another one that people have talked about as being kind of an eyesore that could be fixed up, especially since the City Hotel is gone now, would be Shin's Taekwondo Academy at 3rd and Main Streets. There are apartments upstairs already in that place, but there could be more put into there as well. So these are just some suggestions, some ideas. I don't have any money to put into this other than just some of the historical background that could possibly give you some ideas of what could be renovated to perhaps make Carroll more residential friendly and also preserve the history. Any questions?
No, but thank you, Vicki. She drew a little box around the area that encompasses this. Is that correct,
Yes.
Vicki? And then if you look at the old 1875 plat, it's the same, pretty much you have Clark Street to the east, you have Carroll Street to the west. When you're looking at the original town, which was north of the railroad, then the 2nd edition took it south, and then the 3rd edition went north again, but again, to the east and west, encompassing Carroll to Clark Street. I think, I remember when I was on the council and we were talking about, oh no, Walmart's going out west, it's gonna pull people away from town, and it became a little bit controversial, but it had to be. And then, it evolved to where we are now. And I just see this revitalization. I know history isn't everybody's thing, but, I think we need to keep our draw downtown and to offer the housing to attract laborers, people who could walk to their jobs, help our, retail out, revitalize and rejuvenate the downtown. I think if we get things going, that can lead to even better things, maybe not rejuvenation of historic buildings, but maybe somebody will come up with a vision for the current J.C. Penney building, you know, our Westgate Mall. I just see this as focusing on our downtown is what we want to do, and keep our focus and draw people into the downtown area to keep it vital. I'm really behind doing everything we can and designating whatever council thinks an area downtown to springboard this along and encourage more investment in our downtown area. I think we need to offer a variety of housing choices. This has certainly been going on in the cities where you have housing above, retail, commercial below. That's really trending in Des Moines, other larger cities.
So let's talk about the white elephant in the room. We talk about parking.
Yeah,
So, meeting with Debbie Durham, in that meeting, Mike Franny actually said that the parking's not good in downtown. So what are you gonna do if you start fixing all these up? And in Adam's case, 12, maybe 24, maybe 36 cars start taking up parking spots. How do you revitalize the downtown without taking up all the retail parking spots? Let's look at Anderson Shoes. Let's put a couple apartments up there. Where do they park?
well, I think we should cross that bridge when we come to
just
that. It's a very good question, and Vicki and I talked about it, and some of the areas are better suited with the parking than others, but I think this is going to be a multi-decade situation, I think, that we want to jumpstart. It's not gonna, all of a sudden, we're gonna be infused with, you know, how many people are gonna want to invest over, you know, $1.5 million in a building? But I think it will be a gradual, hopefully a gradual success. And I just think, Tom, that's very valid, but I think whatever council is dealing with it, they will succeed in figuring out any parking needs. I think it can be done, and maybe somebody will, you know, cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think this is a great jumping off place.
Well, we still have before us, you know, there's plenty of time for further discussion, but before us is the city staff needs some direction on this. And probably just a simple motion to that effect, if there's gonna be one made, would be order. And again, there's two items at hand. Are we gonna raise the ceiling on the current program? And the second one would be where? Correct? Did I paraphrase that
Perfect.
fairly well?
So do you need a second location tonight as well to be added to this, or is that something that could be?
I can't,
Added.
we can't write the plan without what area you're gonna do
Okay.
it in.
And that can be expanded, like with a third or fourth later down the road, or does that get?
Well,
Can,
sure,
but
yeah.
I will tell you, it's expensive with noticing we have to do on an urban revitalization. I would, and it's a lot of work.
Yep.
So I would hope we do it right the first time. Just that we're not expending staff time and.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, even outside of this, I think of some other ones, you know, there's some on, you know, Biggie said something about the Shins Taekwondo building. I know there's another one on Main Street, and then there's another one that the city is working on that could open up somebody such as Adam and that group coming in and spending $1 million on a building where you're not gonna have
Maybe
that
my
before.
suggestion tonight would be, I mean, we know Adam's timeline is longer. We know we can meet his demands and needs at this point. Maybe we put two people in a car and we spend an afternoon and drive around and look at where we want to include. If that would be amenable, then I would just ask for 2 volunteers from council to spend an afternoon with me and.
Yeah, I think we need to have some more discussion on these boundaries instead of trying to do it right away tonight.
Understand.
Yeah,
You know, I haven't really
It's a-
studied this out that much.
Yep, and that's a fair point. You know, we have to start the discussion someplace.
right.
But the first segment, can we do that tonight to raise the ceiling? Or you gotta
Well,
wait until?
again, Adam can't start anything for a year,
Okay, so we're not
so
gonna press for that.
we're not pressed
Okay.
for anything.
All right.
And again, if we raise the ceiling, we're still talking multi-residential, which is 4 or more,
3 or more.
or 3 or more?
Yeah.
3 or more, okay.
Yeah.
3 or more.
Which a lot of these second, third story units would be that.
Sure. Yeah, I just know that, 2 weeks ago, we approved duplexes
Yeah.
in the last housing, so there's no gap with 3 or 4 more.
Well, this kind of goes along the line with what we're doing anyway. It's just another avenue.
Right.
And
I'm,
it's about in the same dollar figure is kind of what we're working on. You got 37 grand for 4 units, well, we're doing 20 grand for one house now, so.
Adam, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I mean, so far, everything that we've done from a planning perspective has been mainly focused on that, was it Carroll Street to Clark Street and railroad tracks to 7th Street? That makes the most sense based upon the number of upper story buildings and projects that might come along. I would assume if people acquire property in the future, that could be, maybe it's not historical, I don't wanna go there, but should somebody wanna clear a corner area and convert that to parking, that would still be part of a bigger project, as you talk about mall redevelopment or things of that nature as well. But then, tongue in cheek, we did just have that corridor plan, which really extends to Grant Road and basically to, about the Pella Window Building, if you will. So you could consider that as well, because there's probably some upper story and there's some apartments that extend that whole corridor as well. So maybe getting in the car, like you said, and just driving around, but I'd take a look at that plan that we had originally worked on and take all that into account, because there are some older buildings that certainly are going to be coming up. In fact, I think you've already worked on a property as a fourplex off of 7th Street that, right now, there's nothing the city can do to help with that project for the most part, from the way I understand it. So, and that building's gonna need a lot of work. So, and when you're talking about fourplexes, it gets a little harder to make a business plan, because you're still talking about a big number of dollars per unit. And you can only charge so much in rent, you still have upkeep and management and all of the stuff that goes along with it. So, I think your suggestion of doing a window drive, but, I don't think you have to go the whole city by any means, but maybe that corridor of commerce, and maybe you wanna look a little bit further beyond Clark and Carroll, I don't know. But that'd just be my 2 cents.
Well, and when Debbie Durham was here, she said there's more incentives for downtown stuff too.
There is, yeah.
Anything else? Okay.
So my suggestion is just reach out to me if you want to be part of that group. We'll figure out a time, and otherwise I'll start calling council members. So,
I'd be happy to,
I would as
No.
well.
okay, there's your 2 volunteers.
Here's your 2.
If you need a third, I'm interested.
Sounds good. I have a big car.
Okay, enough on that.
Yep.
Everybody ready? Okay. We'll move forward to item 7B and a report of a bid proposal opening for a golf truck, not golf cart, golf truck.
Correct.
And Chad.
Yeah, so on July 27th, we got 2 proposals back for a 1-ton regular cab pickup with a dump box. 2 of our dealers that put in proposals, one was Motor Inn here in Carroll, the other was Carroll Ford out of Story City. Both of these pickups met specs. For this purchase, or this type of purchase, there is no state required bidding, purchasing requirement. Therefore, the council has the discretion to select a local vendor over a non-local vendor. So our recommendation is for the city council's consideration of a possible award on a 1-ton regular cab pickup with a dump box
for the golf division.
Okay. And it still fell within the budget.
Correct,
Right?
correct.
Yeah, I knew that. Okay,
These are the only two bids we've got.
these were the only two bids received, yep.
Can we go with Motor Inn to keep it local?
Yes, you can.
I
If that-
guess I'd rather do that. I'd feel more comfortable than spending money in our own town than sending it to Story City.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the bid from Motor Inn of Carroll for a 2023 Chevrolet Silverado in the amount of $46,189.40 with trade. Is that correct? Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Base,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Shrek. Yes. Dirks,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Bordenero.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, housing incentives update. Mike?
Yeah, I don't have anything formal or action, just really an update for the council this evening. I mean, first of all, the housing incentive work that the council did at the last meeting that became effective with the infill housing incentive on August 1st, frankly, has generated a lot of buzz in the community. I mean, I've heard from a lot of people in the community that are talking about home construction and looking at it. And so I think that's positive. That's what we wanted to get out of doing this. Unfortunately, we haven't received any building permits yet, but I don't think that should be surprising. I mean, a program that launched a week ago today, people take time to contact a contractor, start that process. So that's not, shouldn't be unexpected. I would say we have all the information on our website, cityofcarroll.com/housing-incentives. You can find it up there. We also talk about our tax abatement that we offer up on that website. We're going to make that a clearinghouse with all the different programs that we're working on to be kind of that one-stop clearinghouse out there. Some updates also with CADC with the Northridge development. We are having conversations and working through that. In fact, we'll be meeting with some of the members of CADC likely next week to work through that. I have a call set up with Nathan Overberg to talk about some of the changes that we want to make, so we're working on that. We have a meeting set up for next week with some local bankers to talk about some potential incentives that they're looking to do to be partners in this. Thursday, I'm meeting with the Carroll Chamber Board to talk about the Newton welcome package that they do down there to see if we can extend that here in Carroll. And I know a couple of you have said you would volunteer to help build out that program. So as soon as I have that conversation Thursday with them, we'll look to move on that. And I do have a meeting later this week with a major employer in town that has expressed some interest to do some incentives also in the area of housing. So there's a lot of good work that I think has come out of the discussion, a lot of moving parts still, and we'll keep working on it. So I guess if there's any questions or comments or things maybe people have heard since we've launched all this, I'd be happy to hear those or answer any questions.
I've been asked a bunch of times, and I just tell people to stay tuned to what we're doing here.
I think people are happy that we're taking some action and willing to jump in and try. And that's what I've heard. Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, just don't feel like you're the Lone Ranger. in
No.
this. I know you always do. You just
It's kinda
take it all
lot.
on yourself, and it takes a village.
It does take a village.
Okay, committee reports, none. Comments from the mayor, I'm just gonna throw out a fast one. Carolyn's a little familiar with this, I think Tom was too. If you guys wanna just look at the letter, we got contacted by the US DOT and the Maritime Division, and they've got an artifact from the US Carroll Victory. It was a ship that was used in days gone by. It was named after the city of Carroll. And they've got a picture of this plaque. It's called an artifact, but it's a plaque. And we've had some dialogue back and forth with them, and now the ball's kind of in our court. But Mike and I certainly have an interest in it, I know Vicky does, but Carolyn does, but all of you will, but we would probably take this artifact, they've offered it to us on a 3-year loan or to just donate it. And I think we're leaning towards just donating it and it's ours to what we do with it. But it's kind of a cool deal, and I just thought that I'd share it with you tonight. And we've got some dialogue going with the director on it already, so I think it'll go pretty quickly.
Yeah, when you look at the letter, I knew nothing about
Me
this
neither.
class of ships, and they shipped animals and whatever, if I remember right. But they were used not only 41 to 44, but also in the Korean War, Vietnam War, and was so vital, to provisioning the troops. So
Yeah.
I think it's nice they offered it.
When I saw that it shipped animals, I thought it was a modern-day ark. Perhaps, I don't know if it was 2 of everything, but anyways, I thought it was pretty cool, and then it's got Carroll ties to it, and so
Yeah.
we'll all agree on a pretty prominent place where we can put it and move forward with it. But that's my only comment, and then we'll move it on quick. Comments from the city council? Are there any? Comments from the city manager?
Just 2 quick things. First of all, the library director candidates will be interviewing Sunday and Monday next week, or this Sunday and then next Monday. But there'll be an opportunity if you want to go meet the candidates on Sunday, August 14th from 4:30 to 6 at the Carroll Public Library, so the public is invited. I do know there'll be a time at 5 o'clock. They will have a opportunity where each of the candidates will speak and kind of introduce themselves, so that would be like the key time. So if you're interested in meeting the candidates, I think we have 3 really qualified candidates, and they had a pretty good pool of candidates, so I think that's very positive. The other thing I would update the public and council on is the rec center improvement project. We had our pre-construction meeting last week with Bating Construction. They are looking to begin construction in the next 3 to 4 weeks, so end of August, early September, that work will start. We don't have a definitive schedule yet exactly when. They're still working through some of those details. Likely they'll start on the north side of the gym, demolish the storage, and then rebuild for the raised walking track. And then they'll also work on the women's locker rooms first. Interesting enough, to help construction debris, they're going to cut a hole in the side of the building right as you walk out of the offices there. On the same wall that would be on the west wall of the pool, there's an area of brick and a control joint they can take out. Looking through the construction plans, and actually that was a Bating suggestion. We think that's a great suggestion. So working with the architect, we did approve them to do that. And there'll be a similar thing when they move to the men's side where they can go through a corridor with block walls. So pretty positive that project's moving forward, and I think we have a good crew that will be working on that. So one of the things we've talked about as staff is it will be a project. There'll be a lot of disruption to our members, so we're working on a communication plan to really be on top of it so the members know what's coming. In fact, today we sent out email blasts to our members to kind of start that. We'll start migrating our 24-hour access. We'll allow them to come in on the east side here shortly. They'll be able to use both, but during construction for a period of time, they will not be able to use the north door. So we'll start getting people moved over that east side. And so there's going to be a lot of disruption, and we'll communicate with our members the best we can. So with that, be happy to answer any questions, Council has a seat. That's all I have tonight.
That it? Nothing else. I see we are in order for a motion to adjourn. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cornero?
Yes.
Dirk?
Yes.
Bates? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Seaman?
Yes.
Shrek? Yes. We are adjourned.